We got a standing ovation. The audience was crying. People came up to us, thanked us for the story, hugged us.
Welcome to another edition of Take 5 with Cohesion Plus, and we're really pleased today. We've got a very special guest from Vancouver, one of my favorite cities in the world, Miss Baljit Sangra, who is a writer, producer and director, and we'll be talking about her forthcoming release, which will be out in the UK very soon on Amazon Prime. It's already available in North America, Because We Are Girls. Baljit, welcome to Take 5.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So first things first, this is a question we ask all our guests. How did you survive lockdown, and what was lockdown like in Canada?
Well, I was actually in Europe. We had premiered at Glasgow International Film Festival, and then we were going to play at the UK Asian Festival in London. So there was a couple weeks in there, so I thought I'd travel. I was in Portugal. And I was there for a week, and then the next week things changed quickly. I was getting texts that you have to get home. It's going to be hard to travel. Airports are shutting down. Flights are getting canceled. So I just scrambled to get out of there. And I literally got one of the last flights out end of March. In April. Yeah. So yeah, it's been interesting. I was excited because we were going to have a whole other leg of festival run. We were going to go to London and then LA and San Francisco, Toronto. Anyway, so that all got canceled. So it's been, it's been interesting. It's been tough. We've gone online sooner. I don't think festivals are going to happen in person for a while. Some of them have gone online, and other ones that we were going to play at are strategizing what they're going to do. So we've just been pushing the online release. We just launched in Canada on nfb.ca, and they have a NFB channel. That's the producers of the film, the National Film Board of Canada. So, but that's geo-blocked to Canada only. The rest of the world will have to see it on Amazon Prime, and that'll be up and running very soon.
For those who may be not familiar with your career, particularly here in the UK, do you want to maybe just explain about your kind of work and your history? Because from what I've seen online, it's a very, very impressive list of work that you've done. But if you want to maybe just explain from your perspective.
I've had a kind of an interesting career. I studied film in film school at the university. I kind of fell into that, actually. I didn't even know it existed on campus. And then, I kind of got into that. I was doing history, political science, seemed like a natural fit. Thought this is another way to tell the story rather than writing it in a way, telling it visually. And then let's see, in terms of my career, Vancouver's got a really big film industry. So out of university, I was able to get jobs. But you're not directing, you're doing everything but that. You're trying to work your way. And that was interesting, but it really wasn't what I wanted to do. I think my career really kind of took a nice shift when I started a television show that was on a couple stations here. It was a arts and entertainment show, and it was really inspired by what I was seeing in the UK. I found like there was so much diversity in content, but it was mainstream. Here, when they do a lot of diversity, it's always on like a multicultural channel or something like that. So it was definitely inspired by what was going on in the UK, and I got a good run out of that. I did like over 100 shows.
I'm really interested, Baljit, in some of your early work that you've done, particularly Many Rivers Home, which I think was a documentary about elders in kind of care homes, and also Warrior Boys, about some of the gang culture in Vancouver.
Warrior Boys was my first documentary. It was really my response just about that issue. It was really in the media like daily, and I felt very sensationalized. There's a lot of racial profiling going on, and I just want to know, like, from the point of view of the youth, what's going on. So I filmed in a Surrey high school. That school had a very large South Asian population. I followed two teens at the crossroads, and then I follow the vice principal of the school, who's South Asian, and and another person who was in the gang life and left that. So he was able to share his experience. So I follow those 4 stories. And then by doing that, you just get a really better understanding of what's going on and hear from them, you know. And I think that that approach made it very relatable to everybody. It really it was definitely not stereotypical, not at all. It was very heartwarming. It brought about a lot of discussion. And then after that, I did another film like that you meant, Mary New River's Home. And my idea there was I wanted to do a film on women and their histories. And I'm thinking, well, how could I do the story that would connect these women? So I visited an assisted living place in Surrey that caters to the South Asian community. It's the first of its kind in Canada. And I just met some incredible women and, you know, tried to follow, you know, why were they there, their friendships, their different stories, because you get women from the whole diaspora, you know, from East Africa, coming from London, Fiji, Canada, Trinidad, like all these, and so their lives intersect at this home, and they all have different reasons of being there. So those are a really interesting story. I thought it would be a lot lighter in my mind, and they'd be more active. Like the working title for me was Golden Girls. That's kind of what I was hoping for, but it turned out obviously to be a lot heavier. You know, the seniors talked about senior abuse, challenges. As I was filming, some residents died. Weave some of my own family history too. My mom sadly passed away too. It was an accident. So that happened while I was making that film. So I was able to sort of weave that narrative in there too. And I think the seniors really helped me sort of deal with that because they were very comfortable talking about death.
Where I'm based, we're based about 30 miles outside London in a town called Gravesend. And it's got a very large Sikh community. It's got one of the largest, if not the largest, Gurdwara in Europe. Like you, we've also made a series of films looking at you know, the story of migration through the eyes of the Gurdwara, how the Gurdwara started from like a 2-bedroom house to where it is now, looking at Bhangra, Kabaddi, and how the early migrants used that, you know, as a way to kind of celebrate their culture. So that's why I was really kind of interested, obviously, to speak to yourself. And the other reason I was really interested in speaking to yourself, because I've heard a lot about your latest film, Because We Are Girls. And I'll get you to describe it in a moment. But again, some of the work we do here in Kent, we try to work with communities, obviously from the Indian subcontinent, and we do an annual event called Sadhya Suno and Listen to Our Voices. It's a women's only event, so we talk about issues around mental health, abuse, forced marriages, and it was because of my experience through that event, and I come across your film, which I felt was really inspiring. And you know, you talk about the film being about love, it's about, you know, family, but it's about honor, it's about abuse. So please talk a little bit more to us about Because We Are Girls.
Because We're Girls is a feature film, and it really talks about a family impact with sexual violence. 3 sisters were sexually abused by a relative, an older cousin. They kept it a secret for decades, even from themselves. And they felt unheard by their family when, you know, after they went to the police. So they decide to take matters in their own hands and go after their cousin in the criminal justice system. So I follow that whole journey. And it's really a story about trauma, family, honor, immigrant experience, sisterhood. You know, you see them support each other. And I say it's a story about love because you see why they're doing it, you know, love for the next generation. They talk about it with their daughters. You also see the impact of sexual abuse on a family in terms of, you know, how it impacts your life. You know, when some of their children find out that this happened to their moms, they're like, you know, now I understand why my mom had so much anger, or why, you know, my aunt, you know, was really sad all the time, or whatever. There is an impact of sexual violence on your life, on your choices, everything. So that comes out in the film.
How did the film come about?
Well, I knew of this story for a while. One of the protagonists in the film, Jeeti, she's a friend of mine, and she had told me about it. After Warrior Boys, we went out for lunch and she's like, have you ever thought of doing a film on sexual abuse in the Punjabi community? I'm like, well, that would be, you know, a very important story, but how would I tell that story? What would my access be? And then she disclosed to me that she and her sisters were survivors of sexual abuse and that they had gone to the police at that time. It sort of stayed with the police for a long time. They didn't do anything. They didn't investigate. And once, you know, when that started to happen and it picked up momentum, you know, I think she really felt that this would be worthy of doing a documentary. It's kind of like, if you're going to go all the way to the Supreme Court, why not do it for the greater good? Why not share the story with the world, right? It's already going to be public. People will be able to read it. You know, court proceedings are public, you know. So she really wanted it to be a documentary. The National Film Board, who are the producers of the film, thought I would be a good fit to direct this film. So that's how that came to be.
What was the response to the film, especially at the premiere?
Well, we premiered it at Hot Docs, which is a premier doc festival in the world. And it was going to be the very first time that an audience saw it, so I had no idea. And we got a standing ovation. The audience was crying. People came up to us, you know, thanked us for the story, hugged us. It was like, wow, it was just really, really emotional. But when we premiered in Vancouver, we opened a festival here. So there was a larger South Asian turnout in Vancouver. And that response was really incredible too, because we had, like, you know, I remember BB coming up to me, hugging, crying. And, you know, you can tell that they know this story and can relate to this story. And it's something that we just never talk about. And the film is very accessible to all generations, really. There's a big climax scene where the sisters confront their parents of the wrongs of their childhood. And almost that entire scene, which is very, very emotional, is in Punjabi. You know, I tried to keep the film as authentic as possible. So, you know, with a lot of Punjabis, we flip between English and Punjabi. And I think, like, it's so relatable, but even people who are not Punjabi can relate to the story because it's such a personal story that makes it a very universal story.
That is so powerful, Baljit. So what's next for you once you finish the promotion and you know, celebrate the success of this film?
The film's still going on. Like I said, it's really getting momentum. When we, you know, posted that it's going to be available on Amazon Prime, we got such a response from the UK and the US. People really want to talk about this film. This film has been getting a lot of momentum, and festivals are pivoting and they're going online. And so I'm really trying to support that too.
If you was giving advice to people starting out, you know, in terms of, you know, writing, producing, directing, what advice would you give young people watching this?
It's so more accessible in a way, you know, production, you know, and you can get a really great SLR, some lenses. You can get a kit together that's not so expensive than, say, back in the day. So I think now is a really important time to tell our stories, and people want to hear our stories. And even the gatekeepers are kind of, you know, in a way being pressured to, you know, let the community tell its own stories. So I think now more than ever, I think it's a really good time for young people to get into film. I think, you know, before it'd be more challenging, you know, it's hard to kind of break into that field, especially if you want to tell a story about that you relate to your own community. But I think right now there's a real shift, and, you know, people are putting some money towards that. So I think now is an awesome time. Just be real, take challenges, take risks in your creativity, in telling a story, try to push your creativity, you know. And if you're a woman filmmaker, you know, I would hire a lot of women filmmakers, you know, especially depending on your topic. Like in this film, a lot of the creatives behind this project were women, and I think that made a difference, to be honest, because of the sensitivity of the topic. But it's kind of like, you know, they say if you can open a door, bring people with you, and I think now is a good time. You should just go for it.
And I definitely think, you know, with the work you've done, I'm sure you're inspiration for many, many thousands as well. So, you know, congratulations to you. Now, just before we finish, we always do a quick fire. Hopefully this translates well. So I'm just going to ask you a couple of quick questions. Just give us the first thing that comes to mind. Bollywood or Hollywood?
Hollywood.
Vancouver Canucks or Vancouver Whitecaps?
Canucks.
Tim Hortons or Starbucks?
Starbucks.
Thank you very much to Baljit Sangra, who you can see her latest work, Because We Are Girls, on Amazon Prime very shortly. Really pleased to have such a distinguished filmmaker on the show. Thank you very much for watching Take 5 with Cohesion Plus.